thank you for coming. My name is Ron Peters. You can hand those out. I graduated from UCLA School of Medicine in 1970, quite some time ago, and I learned in those 4 years how to diagnose disease and how to treat illness based on using pharmaceuticals. I came out of UCLA and I went into family practice, and I realized pretty quickly that the tools I was giving were not resolving, weren't up to what was needed for chronic disease. I then did a little bit of emergency medicine, and emergency medicine, the prevailing medical model in our society, which is if you get sick, you go to the doctor, and it's his responsibility to make a diagnosis and give you a pill to make it go away. That's the medical model. That's what people want. That's what doctors are trained to do. And that worked really well for infections, which were the major medical problems prior to the 1930s. But since that time, the medical model doesn't work well. It doesn't work well for chronic diseases. So I had to learn how to treat the most common medical problems that I saw as I began my practice in Santa Monica. And that's been an ongoing learning process for the past 30 or 40 years, is to understand how to treat illness, particularly the common issues, which are high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, chronic diseases that arise from our mind style and our lifestyle. So my journey in medicine has been to explore nutritional biochemistry. The body that you live in is a miraculous healing machine, the complexity of which no one really understands. So I recognized after many years the best we can do is to promote health in all systems and let the body balance itself out. Most illnesses, we don't understand the cause. We come at it with different kinds of approaches, but the mechanisms of most illnesses are still incompletely, very poorly understood. So for many years, and still, I study nutritional biochemistry, using nutrients to promote health in the body, hormones, improve digestion, improve immunity. And it works really well, but still there's a powerful, another issue, which is consciousness, which is stress. I had the good fortune of having two remarkable teachers, one of which could see the unconscious mind, could see the wounds that we carry inside and how they manifest in our life, not only creating life experience, but also contributing to patterns of disease. So tonight is kind of a culmination lecture for me because it has to do with how consciousness is involved in creating disease, what we commonly call stress, which is a big word. So here we go. I realized many years ago that the human stress system is a powerful survival mechanism, and without a powerful survival mechanism, the ability to run from danger, to protect the village food supply, to protect your family, to escape predators, the human stress system has enabled mankind to survive on Earth for tens of thousands of years. Without it, none of us would be here. But in modern times, that same survival system is killing us off through stress-related diseases. All diseases are stress-related. All diseases have to do with issues within the conscious and the unconscious mind. This is a missing element in clinical medicine. In the past, we had clear-cut dangers. You know, the ability for the stress system to prepare you to run quickly or to fight was clear cut. But in modern times, we have tremendous amounts of stress, but the action to be taken is not quite so clear. This is a study done by the American Psychological Association in 2007. We live in one nation under stress. It seems to be getting more and more as the time goes on. You know, we can flip on the TV and share in the stressful experiences of people all around the earth. You know, we can feel the pain and the worry and the frustration of people living in Japan, people living any part of the globe. 33% report extreme levels of stress. 46% of Americans believe that it has a negative impact on their physical health. What this lecture is all about is how can we take this powerful survival system designed to allow you to run from danger and make it once again our ally, make it once again our friend. So it's not causing disease, but it's helping us to survive. And that's the purpose of this lecture. And you can ask questions if you'd like. Stress is a big topic. We've all know about it. We all have our different understanding of what stress is. The doctor said, "When was your last stress test?" "Well, I went to work yesterday." It's an ongoing issue. I take a stress history on all of my patients, particularly related to what occurred in the few years prior to the onset of disease. And then if you track that back, you can see the origins of those stress patterns in childhood. That's what we're going to be talking about. This particular lecture is focused on being quite practical. I have these 10 tools for reducing stress. These are the tools as an initial summary. Number one is to take care of your body with exercise, healthy diet, nutritional supplements. Number two is to listen to the messages from your body as guidance from within, not symptoms to be eliminated. Number three is understand what your stress signals are, because you're going to use those as cues to understanding yourself better. You're going to understand where your fears come from, where your anger comes from, and your body is going to be telling you these messages. A headache is not something to quickly be obliterated by a pain pill. You can take a pain pill, but it's a message coming from within. Number four, take responsibility for your experience and eliminate victim consciousness. You are the creator of your experience. I'm going through each of these in depth later on. Number five, very important thing is to express emotions. Do not hold them in. If you hold in emotion, then your body will express it sooner or later. It's a very important thing to keep in mind. I've listened to thousands of patients, and I've seen this again and again. And most of my research in this area came based on my own healing work, because I'm a recovering intellectual. I didn't feel feelings at all, but I had a marriage in which I changed that rather dramatically. I'll get into that a little bit later on. Number six, I use the technique of inner child writing to discharge the emotions so you don't have to create drama in your life. How many people create dramatic experiences in their life? We're going to understand tonight why you do that. And the research in medical science is there to support what is actually timeless spiritual wisdom. They're converging these days. It's better, the only way the emotional pain you buried to survive your childhood can heal is for it to create unconsciously a stressful life experience. And the healing comes from owning the emotions that are related to that stressful experience. Number 7 is non-judgmental awareness, and to observe the emotions in the body, not to identify with them. You are who's listening to your thoughts. Your thoughts are highly conditioned. Yes?
I think that's terrific that you have number 6 there. And what part of your medical training did you get that training? Outside of medical school?
It's the UCLA Department of Inner Child Writing. No, I got none of this in medical school.
Right.
I was not satisfied with traditional medical care. I had this compelling need to understand the cause of disease. That led me into trying to understand how the body works, physiology. But then the truly missing element in healthcare is the governing influence of the conscious and unconscious mind. Problem is, 80% of your mind is unconscious. And many of the issues that need to be, it is said that the essence of the spiritual experience is to make the unconscious mind conscious. It's called self-knowledge or self-realization. And your stressful life experiences are personal invitations for that type of important work. And I didn't learn it in med school.
Doctor, can that also be described as balancing the right and left hemispheres?
Yes, feeling and intellect, yes. Yes, we live in a world that is where we tend to rely on our intellect and we don't feel to the degree that we think. We live in a society that teaches us to think preferentially to feeling. Everybody wants to feel happy, feel joy in their life, but they don't want to deal with the sorrow and the grief and the sadness and the anger. So it doesn't work to keep the anger, tears, and sadness locked away and to expect to feel the joy and creativity and happiness in life. They're all feelings. So to balance left-right brain, thinking, intellect, is part of all of our journeys. Number 8, you are who's listening to your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are highly conditioned. To identify with your thought is to identify with unconscious content, the nature of which we will discuss later on. Number 9 is, and everyone has heard, keep your attention in the now. There's rarely any stress in the now, unless you live in Libya or some other place. For most of us, there's rarely any stress right now. The stress comes from our mind and the uncontrolled nature of worrying about the future or feeling angry, resentful, or guilty about the past. Number 10 is to meditate. We need to learn to train our mind. Research from Harvard shows you can actually increase the size of your cerebral cortex using meditative techniques. You have 2 nervous systems. You have a voluntary nervous system that allows you to do what you want to do, walk, talk, put on your tie, brush your teeth. You have an involuntary nervous system called the autonomic nervous system that's divided into 2 branches. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and the other is the parasympathetic. The way to think of the sympathetic nervous system, its sole function is to allow you to run from the tiger. It's called fight or flight. That's all its job is. The other one is the parasympathetic nervous system, and you can conceive of that as the healing system in the body. It governs long-term projects such as immunity, digestion, and hormone production. As we'll see later on, if you're revving up the sympathetic one through worry, anxiety, frustration, fear, you're down-regulating the healing system. The sympathetic nervous system allows a grazing antelope to instantaneously run at high speed to escape a predator lion. To go from quiet, relaxed, grazing, digestion, to full speed running requires a tremendous mobilization of energy, heart rate, blood pressure increase, respiration increases to get more oxygen. The blood is shifted from the extremities to the core. In case the animal is wounded, they won't bleed to death. Blood clotting factors are intensified, once again, in case the animal is wounded, he or she won't bleed to death. This is the reason why people can have heart attacks or strokes in the intensity of an emotional experience. 50% of heart attacks occur in people who have no coronary artery blockage. I had a patient in LA once who was this hothead police detective, and he got so angry one day in a movie theater over somebody bumping his chair that he had a chest pain, ended up going to the hospital and had a heart attack. Subsequent angiography showed no blockage in his coronary arteries. He had so much adrenaline, so much intense emotion that he clamped his coronary arteries shut for 8 to 10 minutes, allowing no blood to get through and creating death of myocardium, a myocardial infarct.
Is that angina?
Angina is when there's reduced blood flow, typically when people have some degree of coronary atherosclerosis. So the coronary arteries are blocked, say 50%, and when they're at rest, there's enough blood flowing. But when they start walking, running for the plane, going up a flight of stairs, the extra demand requires more blood flow, and the blockage then prevents it, and they get chest pain on exertion. That's angina. These are people that are going to the ERs all the time. They're taking beta blockers to reduce their stress, but no one recommends to them that they understand the nature of their stress. These are the immune system is increased, but if the stress lasts for longer than 1 hour, the immune system is suppressed. This is the sympathetic nervous system on the left. It's hardwired for one purpose only: fight or flight. On the right is the parasympathetic nervous system, and it's hardwired for long-term projects in the body, which include hormone production, good digestion, and strong immunity. There's in the antelope, digestive tract will shut down so quickly that an animal will often evacuate their bowels, hence the term scared shitless. Also, blood sugar goes up because if you're running from danger, you need blood sugar. You need sugar in your blood. Every diabetic, most diabetics, I would say all diabetics, have some degree of stress prior to the onset of their diagnosis, prior to the onset of diabetes, because the stress is elevating the blood sugar, along with insulin resistance and other lifestyle issues. Anybody know why zebras don't get ulcers? Vesna knows why zebras don't get ulcers. Joyce.
Why? Because they don't think.
Right. They have this gift. They don't think. They live in the now. They'll run from a lion full bore, and then when the herd is grazing in the next mountainside, they're not saying to themselves in a soft, whispering voice, "Did you see the size of that lion?" Are lions running faster and faster these days? Hey, Ethel, that lion is definitely running faster. Lions don't, or antelope and lions don't think. They don't worry. They don't get ulcers. When they finish their stressful experience, they're automatically back in the now. No thoughts, no mulling it over, no guilt that they didn't run fast enough, no worry that maybe another lion around the corner. None of that.
You're assuming they got away.
Yeah, if they then there's not worrying either. You've got two primary stress hormones. One is adrenaline, the other is cortisol. Adrenaline is stage fright. Heart thumps, jittery. Cortisol is the most important one in my experience because all of us need to understand cortisol because it's the hormone of chronic stress. The analogy in nature is the hunter tracking the prey. Cortisol allows the hunter to be ready, to move quickly, and the final attack is adrenaline. All of us need to understand cortisol because we live in the age of stress, because we have a habit called worry. How many people worry? How many people can tell me the benefits of worry? So, anybody? Yeah, right. So we compulsively do something that causes us disease. Why do we do that? Any ideas? Why do we compulsively do something that serves no purpose? It's a great idea to plan, to make preparations, to get the job done well. But when planning and preparation slides into fear, that's worry. Why do we slide into fear about it?
Automatic behavior? Programmed behavior?
Yes, and we need to understand ourselves better and understand that programming. Joyce?
It becomes a habit.
Yes, it's truly a habit.
You don't even
Right,
understand.
right. And your friends, some of your friends, if you don't worry, they think you don't love them. Cortisol is a powerful hormone. I measure it on every patient. It's either high in the beginning or eventually the adrenal gland wears out and it becomes low. And each of those situations creates a different pattern of medical issues. Cortisol, it's a danger hormone. It's telling every cell in your body that you're in danger. You've heard of Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. His research at Stanford was based on putting single-celled organisms in various little petri dish environments. And he would put these single-celled organisms in a favorable environment where they had all the nutrition they needed and the light was right and the temperature was right and they were just happy little guys. And their DNA would then reflect growth. They would reproduce, they would do things that were growth-oriented for a single-celled organism, which I'm not sure what a growth-oriented activity. If they put some adverse element into the petri dish environment, such as the odor of a predator, or the wrong temperature, or the wrong pH, the animal would go into a defensive state. And the DNA, which is like a hard drive, would then start making proteins to defend and withdraw and protect. What cortisol does is tell your body you're in danger, and these are the effects of cortisol. It increases food cravings. It causes storage of fat, particularly around the middle section, because that fat may be used for the battle at some point. It will break down proteins. It contributes to insulin resistance, heart disease, high blood pressure. It also disturbs bone density. It interferes with the synthesis of neurochemicals of consciousness such as serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine, adrenaline, noradrenaline. Therefore, altering moods, increasing anxiety and depression, reduced concentration, focus, and memory, mood swings, and it reduces sex hormones. Dr. Japolsky, who wrote that book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, he studied baboons in Africa, and he had the ability to watch those that were having stress and those that weren't, and he would take blood samples. And even in primates under stress, their testosterone went down. Most of the men I see now have low testosterone in our society. Because we spend so much time in stress, the body is not concerned about long-term projects if it thinks it's not going to survive the day. Or, according to Japolsky, you don't paint the garage if there's a tornado coming down the street.
Dr. Peters, is there a way to, like you said about the osteoporosis, can that be reversed?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's like many of these chronic illnesses, it's based upon a general program of promoting health. Many people with osteoporosis have undiagnosed gluten intolerance. They eat a high meat diet and become acidic, and the only mineral available to get rid of the acidic byproducts of metabolism are the calcium stores in the bones. They have low hormone levels. They don't exercise enough, like the American lifestyle. And impaired immune response leading to increased infections as well as increased risk of cancer. I believe cancer is a stress-related disease. And if you take the time to take a history of a person who develops cancer, they will tell you why they got the cancer. And unless they deal with the stress, full recovery is very difficult. There's a doctor in Japan that I tracked down. He wrote a book. And in that book, he said it's easy to treat cancer if a patient does two things. Number one, go on brown rice and steamed vegetable diet. And number two, eliminate the stress conflict that caused the disease. What we do in our society is we follow the medical model, which is let's find a magic bullet to kill the cancer. We call it chemo. So we blast away at this cancer, and it will shrink. That's what chemo does. The goal of chemotherapy is to make the tumor smaller, but it doesn't eliminate all the cells, and now the terrain of the body is weakened further, and it comes back quite often. It's also associated with atrophy of brain cells. This is in the research. Alzheimer's disease is highly correlated with gluten intolerance, which is an internal source of high cortisol. If you have gluten intolerance, anybody have gluten intolerance? Some of my patients know if they have gluten intolerance. I check it on everybody. And it took me a long time to make the diagnosis. I missed people for decades. Yes?
But at least you make it. A lot of other doctors
No,
do.
they use a blood test, which is wrong 40% of the time. Anyway, if you have inflammation in the 25 feet of small bowel, your adrenal glands will make cortisol to put out that inflammation, just like having poison oak and putting a steroid cream on it. So if you have stress and gluten intolerance, you have high cortisol and you increase your risk of Alzheimer's, which happened to a friend of mine, a holistic doctor in Chicago. In his early 60s, he got memory loss. He had undiagnosed gluten intolerance and a tremendous amount of stress. So, what turns on the fight-flight system? It's the emotional center of the brain, fear or anger. So how do we turn it off? That's the question. We no longer, our DNA is designed for the hunter-gatherer environment. Our DNA has not changed. It's the same as it was 40,000 years ago on the earth. There's been no change in DNA. But our environment has greatly changed. It used to be on the earth that everybody got exercise. You had to gather your food together. You had to hunt down and try to find something to eat that day. Everybody was fit. There was no option. In modern times, we watch athletes on TV who are fit. In hunter-gatherer times, everybody looked like an athlete on TV. So for us, fight or flight has become anger. Fight has become anger, resentment, frustration. Flight has become worry, anxiety, apprehension. The enemy is no longer outside in the predator or somebody trying to steal your food in the middle of the night, but is moved inside. The stress system, stress will improve immunity if the stress lasts no longer than 30 minutes. But for most of us, we well exceed that time frame and we suppress our immune function. There's a lot of research on what cortisol does to the immune system, including shrinking the thymus gland, which sits right beneath your sternum. It's the educational center for immune cells that are born in the bone marrow. All the white blood cells migrate to a little university called your thymus gland, and there they go through training to become lymphocytes, natural killer cells, cytotoxic T cells, B cells make antibodies. Well, the thymus gland shrinks beginning at about late teens, early 20s. It also causes what's called a Th2 shift. What that means is they've divided the immune system into two general categories of activity. Th1 is the cellular immune system. These are the cells that actually kill viruses, bacteria, and cancer cells. It's the infantry, hand-to-hand combat. The cells that make up the Th1 infantry have wonderful names like natural killer cells, cytotoxic T cells, macrophages, which means big eater. That's the strong immune system that you want. If you have lots of cortisol in your system, Th1 decreases and Th2 increases. Th2 is a backup system. It's the humoral antibody system that makes antibodies against viruses. It's like the Air Force. It shouldn't be a primary system. When Th2 shift occurs, people start getting allergies, whether it's pollens, foods, bee stings, whatever.
Doctor,
Yes.
does a regular practice of doing the thymus thump enhance the health of the thymus?
I don't think it's been shown in research that I know of, but it certainly makes sense to do that.
I was going to ask you the same question because I heard that there was some research, but I'm not sure.
I would like to see it if you can find it. There's a difference between the male stress response, which is traditionally the fight or flight, and the female stress response based on the hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is what causes a baby to imprint on the mother and the mother to imprint on the baby. We use it in medicine to induce labor, but it's vastly more complicated than that simple function. What a female of any species will do is not so much posture to fight, but rather gather the young together and either hide or stay behind the alpha male for protection based on this hormone. And you can increase your levels of oxytocin. You can increase your levels of oxytocin by skin-to-skin contact, also called cuddling. That research comes out of a European university, I think in the Netherlands. Measuring stress, I measure cortisol is at its highest in the morning, and then it tends to go down as the day progresses. I measure it in everyone. Many people have very high cortisols. DHEA sulfate, that's the hormone that birthed the longevity medicine movement. If you keep your DHEA in optimal levels, you do a lot to maintain your health over time. If you look at a laboratory test from LabCorp or Sonora Quest, they don't have optimal levels there. They have averages. Adrenal stress index and heart rate variability are two. This is an adrenal stress index test. At 7 in the morning, this is the normal range for cortisol. By noontime, it comes down. So this dotted line are the ranges, 8, noon, afternoon, and midnight. High in the morning to get you going in the morning, and low at night because you don't need any stress, danger hormones in your body when you're going to sleep. This particular patient has high cortisol all day long. My favorite test for this purpose is called heart rate variability, which actually measures using about a 15-minute computerized assessment of a certain breathing exercises and certain postural changes, where you lay down, you stand up, you breathe deeply, focus on your breath, you hold your breath and do what's called a Valsalva maneuver, where you take a deep breath and push on it. Then the computer will tell you the balance between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. This particular patient, based on the conditioning of her thought processes since throughout her life, has upregulated the sympathetic nervous system to +3. And all she's doing is just sitting there.
Is she burning herself out?
This particular lady has cancer. You were all impressed by an athlete, an elite athlete who can do something remarkable like a gymnast or a high diver. The way they do those things is to do it again and again and again and again. When it comes to brain physiology, what fires together gradually wires together. So the neurological pathways become more ingrained, and after years of practice, they can do a triple backflip. And we go, oh my God, how'd they do that? Well, you're doing the same thing with your thoughts since childhood. You're wiring together and firing together thoughts that have to do with your patterns of childhood stress and how it progressed in your life. The degree to which you worry, the degree to which you feel depressed, the degree to which you have anxiety. This lady has a +3 at rest. This lady, this is normal breathing. She's just sitting there. She wasn't told to think about anything at all. She's got a +3 and a -4 on the parasympathetic nervous system. But just with deep breathing for 3 minutes only, where she focuses on her breath, she moved her parasympathetic tone from -4 to -2. But she still has the elevated sympathetic tone. This range here is where people are at stress all the time, even if they're not having a stressful event. This is the area in which people get sick. Heart rate variability always tells you if illness is going to develop. So tool number 1, take care of your body with exercise, healthy diet, nutritional supplements. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I want to go to the consciousness part. Exercise is important because the fight-flight system is designed to prepare you to fight or flight. So if you fight or flight sometime during the day, you dissipate the stress arousal in your body. Simple thing. It's essential to move your body. You cannot expect to be healthy if you don't exercise. The benefits of exercise are well known. These are some of them here: lowering blood pressure, raising your HDL, improving the strength of your heart, reversing atherosclerosis. If you combine this with a plant-based diet that naturally lowers cholesterol, you can reverse coronary atherosclerosis. This is the work of T. Colin Campbell, 20-year study, multinational study, multi-university study, as well as Caldwell Esseltine with advanced coronary artery disease patients, and then Neil Bernard with diabetics. And now, Dean Ornish with early stage prostate cancer. This is going to sound like heresy, but we're best suited for a plant-based diet. And we live in a world that worships animal protein. One of T. Colin Campbell's lectures on the cruise that I lecture on, his lecture is entitled Protein Worship. Why we think we have to have meat. It's a complex question. It's ingrained in many issues. We're better suited from primarily proteins, which are adequate, from beans, whole grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. When we eat protein every day, 2 or 3 times a day, because we can, animal protein, because we can, we increase the risk for numerous health problems, including insulin resistance. Exercise increases metabolism, reduces fat, reduces insulin resistance, reduces leptin resistance. It reduces thick blood, which is reflected in C-reactive protein or fibrinogen.
What is leptin again?
Leptin is a hormone made by the fat cells in your abdomen that tell your brain that you no longer need to eat, and it increases fat metabolism. It's the reason that a little child, 5, 6 years old, they eat and then they get up from the table and they say, I've had enough. They won't eat anymore. But then mom or dad come in and say, you need to eat more. You need to clean up that plate. When I was a kid, it was because there's starving kids in China. So the kid stops eating based on his internal cues and his own physiology and begins to eat to please mom or dad. So therefore, the natural regulation of food intake is gone and it's replaced by social cues. Leptin resistance means, usually because of C-reactive protein, the leptin is no longer making it through into the blood-brain barrier, into the brain. So the leptin builds higher and higher in the blood, and it's not communicating to stop weight gain, to increase fat metabolism. Sleep is primarily a time of parasympathetic dominance. It's where the body restocks the shelves after a busy day. It's very important to sleep adequately. Sound sleep, 7 to 8 hours, is really important. For me, a patient must sleep. It's like the first issue. Regardless of what they're complaining of, if they're not sleeping, it becomes a primary issue medically. Yes?
Doctor, it's helped me a lot. I bought one of these black masks to go over the eyes, so that shuts out any light.
Yes, research has shown that you need to sleep in a completely black room. Not even a tiniest bit of light.
That would amaze me. A tiny bit of light affects the pineal gland.
Yes, right. When you go to sleep, the first 3 to 4 hours of sleep, your body's making growth hormone and melatonin. And if there's any disturbance in those first 3 to 4 hours, if there's any light, ambient light in the room, that internal hormone production is disturbed. People with adrenal fatigue like to stay up late at night. They go to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, Then they can't get out of bed in the morning. That's not a healthy plan. And it's certainly, you know why they called the graveyard shift?
Do you have any comments about middle of the night insomnia?
Probably stress related. Not enough exercise, not enough serotonin, not enough melatonin, food allergies, having to get up and urinate. See, I do the same thing for every patient. I promote health in every system. I don't even focus. I focus on the disease to better understand it, but my diagnostic criteria are all the same. Food allergies, probable yeast overgrowth, rule out gluten intolerance, nutrient malabsorption, weak thyroid, too much adrenal insufficiency. They're very common, so it's hard to say. Each of these things is a puzzle with many pieces, but those are the common pieces. In terms of nutrition, the research is showing that if you eat more vegetables, it will increase serotonin production, Meat contains natural L-tryptophan, but when you eat meat, the L-tryptophan has to compete with so many other amino acids for absorption, the L-tryptophan loses out. L-tryptophan is one of the amino acids that's last to enter the blood-brain barrier. So if you want better absorption of tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin, which is a calming neurotransmitter, calms the electrical activity of the brain, they've shown a plant-based diet. High meat diet can also elevate levels of dopamine and norepinephrine, which are associated with stress. Sweets increase serotonin. That's why people like sweets. It's one of the reasons why people like sweets. It actually increases serotonin. It's using food to modulate mood. But the problem is weight goes up and the cycle goes, your blood sugar goes up and down. It's not a good long-term solution. Caffeine, of course, late in the day increases adrenaline, which we like, but it also will disturb sleep, as we know. These are the foods that we should avoid during times of stress. These are nutritional supplements that are helpful the body to. Many people are deficient in magnesium, 68% of the American population actually, and they end up with more anxiety. It takes magnesium to make GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter like serotonin. It also takes magnesium for your muscles to relax. People with tense muscles, low back pain, neck pain, often have low magnesium. Magnesium taken at night, magnesium citrate, is very helpful for sleep. It's a great way to improve sleep. I have patients who are really deficient in magnesium. You give them an IV, and I've had a few go home and sleep for a day. Phosphatidylserine is the only amino acid that actually lowers cortisol. So if you have adrenal fatigue and you have high cortisol at night and can't sleep, you can take phosphatidylserine. Theanine is from green tea. It also has an anti-cortisol effect. Rhodiola is a tremendous adaptogen, better than ashwagandha is good as well. Number 2, listen to the messages from your body as guidance from within, not as symptoms to be eliminated. We want to understand when we're under stress. To be tense in the body, to have an upset stomach, to have a headache or some other message is not something to be eliminated, but rather to understand why that occurs. It's also okay to eliminate it with a symptomatic medicine, but heed the message from the body. Consider yourself the captain of the starship. You know, you want to listen to what your body's telling you, not override it, not suppress those symptoms. Tool number 3, be aware of the stress signals in your body and mind, because they're not annoyances, they're opportunities for understanding why you're developing stress. So, tool number 3 is a critical one for understanding how we can make the stress system once again our ally, to move it from creating disease to creating health. This is the essence of this approach. Now, take responsibility for your experience, eliminate victim consciousness. What this means is, that this is perhaps one of the most important things I've learned about health. Actually, 2 things on the level of consciousness. One is the importance of expressing and feeling emotions. And number 2 is the importance of doing in your life what brings you a sense of creativity, excitement, joy, enthusiasm. Many people will settle for some unfulfilling in work because it pays well. The issue with emotions is based on the fact that all children have stress in childhood. There are no Christ-like parents. How many people had stress in childhood? It's part of our journey here. A child who has a stressful experience And let's start with a graphic example of a little girl whose father is alcoholic. She's 2 or 3 years old, 5 or 6 years old, maybe even less than that. And she hears or experiences or sees the violence in the family when father comes home and he's drunk. She could see violence toward a sibling or towards mother. The emotions are powerful. They include lots of fear. They include grief and sorrow. Just normal feeling. But the child can't handle that intensity of feeling. Children suppress emotions in order to survive. It's automatic. Just like a soldier who stumbles across a horrific battle scene will block it out of their mind. Child do that automatically. We've all done that. But the emotions that are suppressed are not gone. They're just stored in the unconscious mind, becoming what is called emotional wounds. So the little girl with an alcoholic father who's violent in the family regularly seeds into the unconscious mind tremendous fear, anger, sorrow, grief. She enters her young adult life with these emotional wounds, and we all have emotional wounds from childhood. Those emotional wounds, like any wound in the body, seek to heal. The only way an emotional wound can heal is to create life experience that would bring the feeling up. So she is quite likely to attract an alcoholic boyfriend or an alcoholic husband. Not consciously. Consciously, she knows she doesn't want an alcoholic. Her conscious mind thinks this is a good guy. She likes him, she loves him. She establishes a relationship with what she thinks is a good man. The unconscious mind makes the final choice as to who your mate is because this is the person that will help you heal the wounds of childhood. When the alcoholic behavior starts at the age of 25, for example, now she can let the anger, tears, and sadness out that she couldn't when she was 2 or 3 or 5. And if she discharges the feeling in a natural, healthy manner, that is called a natural therapeutic experience that David Viscott wrote about, and that traumatic experience has become a healing experience. How many people know someone who had an alcoholic parent that marries an alcoholic? How many people know somebody who had an alcoholic relationship, left it, and had another alcoholic relationship? If you don't express the feelings in relation to a trauma that you've created unconsciously, then you're likely to do it again. And sometimes again and again and again. How many people in this room are okay with the idea that consciousness creates reality? This is a big shift because in our society we're taught that all the power is in the outside world. We're taught the reason that we fell on our butt in the supermarket is because the floor was wet. And we can hire an attorney to convince the entire world that the reason we fell on our butt in the supermarket is because the floor was not waxed properly. We're taught to be victims. We're taught, which is basically saying that all the power is in the outside world. The power is in the outside world. Which is basically the kind of, if you think about that, that's a very disempowering notion. Because you're basically waiting for whatever event might befall you next from a hostile world. The truth is, which we're not taught in this society, is that consciousness, in this case co-creative consciousness, creates third-dimensional experience. This room, as tangible as it is created from consciousness. However, most of the mind is unconscious. So if you create a beautiful life experience, congratulate yourself, so be it. If you create a painful life experience, whether it's a relationship problem, a work problem, a physical problem, or any kind of problem, That is an issue arising from the unconscious mind for the purpose of owning the emotions and understanding the belief systems that created it, so you can gain wisdom, heal those wounds, become wiser and stronger. Quantum physicists are telling us the same things that spiritual teachers have told us for hundreds of years. We live in a sea of energy. Energy and matter interrelate. They can one become the other. A physicist can look at a light and it will behave like a particle, and under other conditions they will look at light and it will behave like a wave. What this actually means is there's no such thing as scientific objectivity. And our society honors and is reverent towards science as an objective science. But the physicist or the scientist is creating that experience as they do so-called objective research. Is everybody okay with this? Anybody? Everybody's okay with this? You just probably won't tell me, right? Yes.
So are you saying that, and I don't disagree with this, I've actually had this thought before, that you can't derive truth from science?
Oh yes, no, you can derive truth from science. I mean, most of the science we study is looking to see what probabilities are, how things behave most of the time, understanding deeper mechanisms. But as you go to the core mechanisms, which quantum physicists have arrived at, these are the guys that have the mathematical understanding of what is the nature of reality at its most fundamental nature. And these are the ones that are telling us it's a matter of probabilities based on your observation. But when it comes to science telling you the best time to do something, how bodies work, that's solid science, but at its very basic, it's not objective.
Did you mention the movie What the Bleep?
How many people have seen the movie What the Bleep is Happening? It's a great movie. It has 4 or 5 quantum physicists telling you this. And it also has several spiritual teachers telling you this in a beautiful format. You can get it at Blockbuster. It's called What the Bleep. Basically means what the heck is happening? What's going on? What the bleep do we know? Right. This is the issue with the conscious and the unconscious mind. We live here, but this is a very powerful force. Every experience you've had in your life has been created by you in co-creation with those around you. The research on this was done a lot by John Pennebaker, a University of Texas psychologist, for example, and he's done lots of research on this. He took a group of people that were suddenly laid off from a high-tech computer firm in Houston, Texas. He took half of these people, and everybody was very stressed out. They were very angry, they were betrayed, they were fearful they're not going to have enough money to take care of their family, on tremendous stress. They were betrayed, abandoned, and they were angry, afraid, and hurt. He had half of the group write about their intense feelings for 30 minutes each day. He had the other half write about something that was not particularly meaningful, such as what they did last summer. The group that discharged their feelings found work 50% faster than the group that wrote about something uneventful. The reality is that we create these dramatic experiences in our life to own the emotion that comes up. If the conscious mind wants to start a business and become a millionaire, and the unconscious mind wants to heal the grief and sadness of not being good enough, guess which one will prevail? But then, if a year later there's bankruptcy, it's an opportunity for healing. That's what disease is, an opportunity for healing. The purpose of cancer is to produce healing. The purpose of all disease is to take a new path and create healing, not to suppress the creative forces in consciousness are thought. Thought and emotion are the two most powerful tools you have. Thought can be wrapped into, bundled up into opinions, beliefs. You create your reality based on core beliefs. As you progress in this kind of work, you'll begin to understand what those core beliefs were. We were talking earlier about my father was the 14th child or 12th child in a West Virginia family, and his mother was just too busy. He was raised, and he had this belief system that life is really difficult. You have to work really hard. You're never going to make any money, on and on and on. And I realized I inherited these beliefs. They became part of my belief system. You know, you got to work really hard. Nothing's going to be easy. We have these beliefs. We have beliefs about our own self-worth. We have beliefs about whether we deserve to be happy or healthy. We have a lot of, but most importantly, we have emotions inside that need to be owned whenever we create unconsciously some drama, whether that drama is in our work, our home, or physical body. Right now in this country, the entire nation is going through this kind of process with economic worries. Emotion fires up thought, makes it more powerful. Nobody wants to suppress love, joy, and happiness, but they think they can stuff the anger, sadness, and tears. How many people find it difficult to cry? How many people find it difficult to express anger? Yes, these are common issues. You've heard about, the most recent example of the power of thought is the placebo research done at Baylor University in 2004, where they took severely osteoarthritic knees and they sent half of them to the OR. They went under anesthesia. They made small incisions on each side of the knee, and then they immediately sewed up the knee, sent them to the recovery room. They took the other half, sent them to the OR, put them under anesthesia, made 2 small incisions on each side of the osteoarthritic knee. But in this case, they did the laparoscopic surgery. They trimmed up the knee cartilage, sewed it up, sent them to the OR, to the recovery room. In both groups, the resolution of knee pain was equal over the next year, simply because they believed they got the surgery. You can find this research on YouTube. Google Baylor University sham orthopedic surgery.
I think there's a lot of research on.
Yeah. Multiple personality disorder. One personality can have diabetic ketoacidosis. A psychologist comes in, brings in another personality, and the diabetic ketoacidosis reverses. One personality is allergic to citrus, develops hives. Another personality comes in and the hives resolves, or the asthma resolves. Here it is. Great movie. Tool number 5, express your emotions. Do not hold them in. If you don't express your emotions, your body will. So you can make your stress system once again your ally to help you grow and protect you by heeding when you're under stress and then understanding what the emotion is. If you're angry or if you're hurt, you need to express the feeling. It certainly doesn't have to be in a violent manner, and it doesn't even have to be with the person. If you're upset at work, somebody hurts your feelings, you can say in a responsible manner, I feel angry when this happens, if it's appropriate. Or you can go home, talk it over with your family, or you can go after the emotion because the emotion is arising from a wounded child inside, and let that angry child discharge that feeling. You can do that too. Exercise is great. Emotions are the navigation system in life, as we talked about before. Emotional expression is standard equipment in children. Children have to be taught how not to express feelings, which many of us are. You know, I have in my book some German research, or some German, where the German psychologist wrote in the 40s and 50s not to go to your baby if he or she is crying in the night. This little innocent baby's crying, looking for nurturing, establishing patterns of self-worth and personal power by calling out in the night, and the mother doesn't come because she might spoil the child. Those kinds of emotional experiences occur day in, day out in childhood. It doesn't have to be the emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. It doesn't have to be abandonment through death or divorce. It doesn't have to be alcoholism or some violence in the family. It can just be a controlling parent who was full of fear, very controlling, who just controlled everything the child did. It can be ongoing types of daily, less clear, less dramatic stress. Like I said before, your unconscious mind needs to heal its wounds, and it can only do that by creating dramas in your life. And if you own the emotion underlying the drama, then you've heeded the message of the experience, and you no longer have to do that pattern again. If you don't express your emotions, your body will. The way the body expresses emotions is through diseases or symptoms of diseases. Carl Jung said, emotion is the chief source of all becoming conscious. There can be no transforming of darkness into light and of apathy into movement without emotion. Why do people get depressed? Because they stuff anger. The religious process consists of restoring wholeness to the personality. The word religion means to relate, to put back together again, to heal the wounds of separation. The dramas in your life are not annoyances to be discarded or suppressed, but opportunities for personal healing and growth. And when the message is heeded and the emotion felt and the responsibility is gained, then the drama changes. Just like it did for the computer workers in Texas. You resolve it more quickly. This is his Pennebaker's work. He wrote a book called The Healing Power of Emotions. He has lots of this research. Basically, if you express your feelings, one half of a group of 50 students wrote about their deepest thoughts and emotions concerning some trauma or tragedy that occurred in their lives. The other half wrote about something superficial. They only did this for 20 minutes on 4 consecutive days. In the group that wrote about their feelings had increased lymphocyte responsiveness that was not only greatest after the last day of writing, but lasted for 6 weeks. There's plenty of hepatitis B vaccinations. The trauma writing group had higher levels of sadness, but they also had higher levels of antibodies against hepatitis B when they were given a vaccination. Tool number 6. This is the technique I was taught by a teacher of mine that I had the great good fortune of working with closely. This particular person could see the unconscious mind. She could look at you and see your past. It was a gift. And she could see the wounded part of self that had engineered this drama that we're dealing with. In this case, I had a traumatic marriage. But in retrospect, that traumatic marriage caused me to stop trying to fix somebody else, but to fix myself, to begin to express emotions naturally, and to catch up on the emotional pain that I had buried, that was brought forth by this challenging marriage, which was a blessing. Blessing in retrospect. At the time, I wouldn't call it a blessing. At the time, it was incredible drama. I mean, we used to have such big fights. One night, the cops came to the house. You know, these yelling, screaming. I married a woman that was the 10th child in an Irish alcoholic family. And she was full of emotions and anger. And I stuffed all my anger, all my emotion, because I was an intellectual. You know, I was a medical student, thinking. So I did inner child writing for 2 years straight. And I would bring up all this sadness and all this grief and all this sorrow. And then it allowed me to no longer need a dysfunctional relationship, and I manifested a very powerful and beautiful relationship. Non-judgmental awareness, judge not lest ye be judged. You know, we've heard of this. It's in many spiritual teachings. If you judge something to be bad, then you're only going to play it again and again and again. It just is what it is. How many people have heard of Eckhart Tolle? Yeah, Eckhart Tolle, suicidally depressed for 20 years, and one night in his despair, he thought to himself, I can't take myself any longer. And then it occurred to him, there must be two of him, the part he can't take and the part that can't take that part. And then that flipped him into a state of enlightenment. He woke up the next day and he said he heard a bird singing outside his bedroom door for the first time. He saw light coming through the curtains in his room for the first time. It's as if his entire consciousness was cleaned from this ego chattering filter called ego, and he just saw the moment as it is. Like Aldous Huxley said, the doors of perception are cleansed. You will see the moment, the infinity of the moment, which is a high spiritual state. We live in our chattering mind. We're evaluating everything based on our experience. If you grow up in East LA, you have a different outlook on life. You grow up in Rwanda, you have a different outlook on life. You grow up in San Francisco. But all of that is conditioned awareness. Who you really are is who's listening to that thought. According to Eckhart, identification with mind, which causes thought to become compulsive, is the greatest obstacle to peace and joy. Not to be able to stop thinking is a dreadful affliction, but we don't realize this because almost everyone is suffering from it, so it is considered normal. Tool number 8, you are who's listening to your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. Be aware of your thinking process, how it worries about things that may go wrong in the future, therefore stress, because worry is fear, fight or flight. Or it's upset, angry, guilty, resentful about something that went wrong in the past, which is anger. Staying in the moment is stress-free zone. Number 9, keep your attention in the now. Give every activity you're engaged in your fullest attention. Be fully present. This is what is emerging in the research on meditation as frontal lobe activity. Your frontal lobes of your brain, right up here, are the command center of your brain. If you're fully engaged in the moment, I used to do technical rock climbing, and when you're on a rock, you are completely engaged in that moment. If you don't engage, you start freaking out. If you stay fully engaged in the moment, like surfing, making love, watching a beautiful, if you're in the moment, you're in the frontal lobes of your brain. If you're working on a problem and you're fully engaged in it, all of your resources of your brain are available to make proper decisions and do what you need to do. When you move away from being fully engaged in the moment, then the brain goes on automatic and it begins popping thoughts, worried thoughts, frustrated thoughts, what might go wrong, what did go wrong, is it going to happen again? So you come back to the moment and you observe the textured details of this incredible world we live in. And finally, meditate daily and experience who you really are beneath the level of reactive thought. As I said before, owning emotion and training your mind are real important things to help you reduce your stress and make your stress system once again your friend, not the source of disease, but rather the source of growth. The research on meditation is very powerful. When I was at UCLA, it was back in the days of TM. So I lived in a little apartment in Westwood, and I'd get up every morning, I'd walk through Westwood right by the TM store. And they had these big charts. TM meditation lowers your blood pressure, reduces heart rate, treats depression. Everything they addressed would come out in the research. And then I'd go to the medical school, and they were giving bronchodilators and blood pressure medicines, and it was like this. If you work on the source of disease, then you're at the highest level of health. Meditation is a frontal lobe activity. It keeps you in the now. There's the frontal lobes of the brain. These are the effects of meditation in the body. Improving metabolic rate, lowering blood pressure, improving weight loss, improving the heart, improving immunity, on and on and on. On the mind, improving moods, coordination, perception, academics. Socially, meditation increases productivity, job performance, job satisfaction, because you stay out of your reactive mind. No newsflash, right? You can go to work and worry and feel frustrated about all the things that are, or you can just stay focused in the moment. Thinking has become a disease. You believe that you are your mind. It uses you. This is the disease. This is the delusion. You begin to realize there is a vast realm of intelligence beyond thought. That thought is only a tiny aspect of intelligence. You also realize that all the things that truly matter, beauty, love, creativity, joy, inner peace, arise from beyond the mind. Meditation for me has become so important that I really no longer make decisions so much. I used to try to hammer away and make decisions. You know, my ego would try to figure everything out, and I realized I could come up with the pros and the cons, and I didn't know what the heck to do, and I would see what everybody else is doing. Now I just think about it, let it go, and usually in meditation or some synchronous time in the future, I'll get information coming from what I believe is a higher aspect of myself that gives me the guidance I need and the answer that I need, and it comes with a heartfelt certainty. This is my book. All of this is in there. Anybody have any questions? Thank you for coming.